Welcome back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively merging the streams between sports and all of the social issues and community causes and stories that we tell. And I hope everybody's digging the new BaltimorePositive.com. I may show it off before it's all over with. Bill Cole joins us now, and I'm usually drinking my Royal Farms coffee out of the Cole roofing mug that I once dumped over onto the console. It was all Luke's fault. And I'm out of coffee, dude. I'm previously caffeinated. So I went with the hat. I like the hat. It's good. I'm colorful. It's my birthday week. We're playing the Eagles. We're pretty good. We're trying to keep COVID away, right? I mean, we got all sorts of things going on in the big city, right?
There's never a shortage of things to talk about. That is for sure.
Well, I'm launching the new thing, and people are finding it. I'm doing this teacher appreciation thing this month. I'm taking a little journey. You launched a new thing when you did solar, right? Like when I launched the website, the original website, like 06, 07, 08, I was trying to explain to people, like, this iPhone thing was coming. I remember when I showed it to Steve Bisciotti once on the club level. I showed it to Ed Hale one time, like, what this thing was going to be able to do. And you talk about solar all the time. Anytime you're trying to introduce something new, what do you think is the most important thing?
So for me, it was being able to tell a story of where I was coming from and where I was going and why I thought that made sense. And I think luckily for me, talking about putting solar panels on top of commercial roof space, most people are able to connect the dots there, and they're like, yeah, okay, that totally makes sense.
Dude, you got me. I'll totally remember this. It was probably 2000 and what, maybe 7 or 8, 9. We became friends. You picked me up in your truck, and we drove down to an event on the Potomac, and it was just sort of like this to hang out and give us something to do. And I remember you explaining it to me, and I'm like, hold on here. Let me get this straight. Your family's been on roofs all these years, and then there's this thing that could take advantage of the sun on a roof. That makes sense. I totally remember not like I didn't have to scratch my head too much, but when you thought of solar, you thought, oh man, that's technical, that's not tar, that's not brick, that's not, the shingles and whatever that brick stucco stuff I see out when I go to like Arizona on roofs. I'm thinking, that's sort of James Bondy. And I always kid you about that because it was the first movie I ever saw was The Man with the Golden Gun and the Solex agitator and using the sun and whatever. Other than, I wasn't a big sci-fi guy. I didn't do Star Wars. But it made sense to me that you were doing that. So I would think you were in a different space to explain it to people. But look, it's 2020. There's still people that don't get it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the good and bad of that story is that the light bulb goes off for most very quickly. Oh yeah, sure. Space, sun, power, that all makes sense.
I have a roof anyway.
Right. What is more difficult to explain is that the complexity of that actual transaction and I don't think it's inherent resistance to change, but maybe that's just what it is, that it's new, different. My neighbor hasn't bought it. Why should I buy it? Hey, I think that stuff's really expensive. So everybody would tell me it was a great idea, but nobody was wanting to buy it. So there was, a disconnect there.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I still don't have it on my roof right now. Right. Exactly. Well, okay, fair enough.
But that's a result of sort of our country and our society and the way we do things. And it's very difficult to cause change.
Here's where I hold up my ballot and I tell everybody, is this the point in the show? We get a few minutes into it to vote?
I'm not sure that the lobbyists are necessarily on the ballot. So no matter who is in charge or who gets elected, there's significant dollars, right, with opinions
on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, right. About what's best for our country.
About using things like gas and using things like clean coal and different things that create energy that may or may not be a good idea, short-term, long-term, or any term, but they're a good idea for the people who are sending people to Washington to vilify windmills, as an example, correct?
Sure, always. And that dialogue goes on. And you can't expect a senator or a congressman to fully understand, right? Like they can't be an expert at everything, so they rely on lobbyists. Like lobbyists have a pretty negative, reputation, but honestly, that's the way that the information is communicated, because these people can't possibly be experts on everything. So there is a role. The difference is how much it's motivated by profit versus motivated by the better good. And it's a little bit utopian to think, right, that every lobbyist is going to go down there and just speak towards what's best for the world and the people and humanity. But on some level, somebody needs to be kind of the gatekeeper, like, hey, we need to know about this
Oh,
because we need to
yeah.
understand how it affects the humans.
The gatekeeper, as we sit here watching Supreme Court nominees get jammed through here while wearing masks in the middle of a pandemic that we've sort of elected to just go with herd immunity, right? Like we're not wearing wristbands, we're not doing anything, and you said something that I want to go back to, because I was about to just take you into the football rabbit hole of
Yeah,
the Titans and
sure,
money and football and LeBron, because I've gone down that rabbit hole a little bit this week. But you said resistance to change.
sure.
That was sort of at the top of the pyramid of where this thing began, and thus goes humanity. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I love you because you always throw enough bait out there to try and take me down some wonderfully political conversations or some
No, no, no.
wonderful anxiety riddled conversations that we've had many times in the past. I you know it's super complicated. Um, I don't know where you want me to go with the change around how we live our lives, the maybe the concept of anxiety for people, that even if you're open to change, right? Like I have to temper my desire for change because it drives my people crazy, right? Like if it was up to me, every day I'd run in there and, oh, let's try it this way or let's try it that way, and it would drive them crazy. So I have to hold back. But for many
Yeah,
people,
we
and
idea guys have to really
yeah,
polish it over before we take it down the room, right? Literally.
and the undue anxiety that I cause my people sometimes by trying to force them to change. I mean, multiply that by a million times when everything about your life is affected by something as overarching as a pandemic. I mean, everything. How you get your food, how you put gas in your vehicle, where you go to work,
I
how
think,
often you see
dude,
your
dude,
parents.
I'll just say this, and I'm getting more wisdom on this, right? So as we speak, it's today's my 52nd birthday. So you're my first conversation on my 52nd birthday. So I would
Well,
say
at some point, I'm going to tell you happy birthday.
well, that's cool. That's send me cake. It's all good. Just make sure
Right.
it's good and low fat.
If I
Um,
would have known, I would have made a background that said like "Happy Birthday, Nestor." That would have been
you're gonna let
amusing.
streamers and confetti fly,
Right,
and
right,
um,
right.
I would just say the wisdom that I've gathered on resistance to change and where it is this. I was born in '68, so I guess in this country, in our society, and I've had my own personal issues, right? You have your own personal. I cut my finger off. My father died. My wife got cancer. The things that rock your world in your own individual personal world, right? You get married, birth of a child, loss of a loved one, get hired, you get fired, you have to fire people, all of that stuff that happens during the course of your own lifetime. And then there's where were you when Nixon was, or Kennedy got shot, or 9/11 or whatever. We haven't had a lot of that, bro, right? Like, Bosnia was over there and the earthquake was over there. And other than New Orleans, that was down there. And, the natural disaster, that fire is over there. And, gee, that flood that took out Bowley's Quarter, well, I live in Timonium. You know what I mean? Like, so there's these natural disaster things that happen. And then there's, war. Like, literally, my father in 1929 after the stock market crash at 10 years old, not being able to eat. That's a different level of the household I grew up in. And then coming down to Essex and working at Martin Marietta in the war to build planes to go destroy Nazis and and the Japanese and Pearl Harbor and all of that in the 40s, which was a household I was raised in, and I know you were too, with your grandfather, who was very near and dear to you. I know those stories. But this thing here, right? This thing here is the thing, right? It's that thing. And whether you're 51 when it happens, whether it's March 13th when it happened for you, or whether it trickled down, or whether you own Walmart and or Bezos and it's Amazon Day that falls on my birthday and he's going to get richer, make another $1.5 billion, today off of the sale day, the Black Friday that's now the Columbus Day after sale thing that's my birthday. It used to be the World Series, by the way. I would just say that the resistance to change thing, we're all resistant to change, dude. We all love it the way it was. I prefer Ocean City in the summer of '88, right? Like, we all love that. But then it comes, and then you can't. It is the earthquake. And the pandemic's that for everybody. And, maybe it takes you a day to realize that, a week. Maybe it's the first time you walk in with a mask on, or the first time you can't find toilet paper. Whatever that moment was, that was like 9/11, that happened over a 2-week period, and then it kind of happened over a year, where things sort of normalized a little bit, and then it became the new normal. They have to take everything off the airport, right? That whatever the new normal on the other side of this is going to be. And, dude, I'm watching Shanghai. I'm watching them drag this idiot out of parliament in Italy, literally drag him down. And I'm wondering, like, on the back end of all of this, Biden, Trump, senators, relief, our businesses, when the virus sits in the middle of this, and whatever's the other end of that is going to be something different, that is going to be a permanent change in a culture that's resistant to change, which I bring back to you. So have at it.
So I try and create a scale, like an order of magnitude, just to give myself perspective, so you don't completely freak out, right? Like,
World War III is the 11. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I'm speaking more historically. Like, I read the biography of George Washington, and it talks about fighting the American Revolution and the British sending infected, soon to be Americans with smallpox into his camp in an attempt to, infect all his soldiers. And it's like, okay, you think about how tough our lives are. Can you even imagine the challenges?
And
right?
that's just
like,
a line in a book, right? Like, you look at it,
right,
you're like,
right.
smallpox. It's like polio. My grandmother had polio. And you just think, it's a little thing. You know what I mean?
The
like,
challenges.
maybe we didn't do enough research on what the flu was really like. And when, my mother, and I have to laugh, my mother was 98 when she died 3 years ago. And in the early weeks of the pandemic, it wasn't called the pandemic. If you remember back in March, it was the virus. And my mother, who was born in 1919, it was like her code word for getting sick. I'm coming down with the virus. My mother was, incredible hypochondriac, like a lifer in that vocation. And so, but the virus. And I never really sat and talked to her about what she knew from her childhood about the virus,
Right. I think we have the benefit of American medicine today, and I guess what I'm trying to offer in the resistance to change concept is, when you go to world war, the impact to society is profound, right? Like, they stop making this, they start making that. They don't eat that anymore, they start eating this. Like, world war, everyone's on the team. Everyone has to participate. We have never experienced that. We're not
Right.
experiencing that now.
We couldn't even get together and get masks on and get rid of this.
This is super far away from that concept. I get frustrated because, to me, I feel like we do have these a lot in our life. Like, I feel like we're on a rhythm now where every 10 years we have to have some sort of macro global economic catastrophe that totally restructures the way we do things.
So we behave better.
The something, because, and I I don't want to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole and say that people are driving those, but 9/11 leads to the economic collapse of the housing bubble, leads to the pandemic, and not that there aren't things in between theirs, but these are like every 10 years we have these massive things. And even now in a pandemic, we could line 100 people up, and one person at one end says, to your point, this is the most significant thing that's ever happened in our lives. It's going to completely change everything. And you get to the other end of the line, and there's a person there who doesn't actually believe it's real. It hasn't changed their life at all, and is just running around, calling everyone else sheep. And I don't know. I mean, when your neighbor's 18-year-old son comes back from Europe in a box, there's no denying that, right? So when the event is so large that everyone gets touched, right? Like at this point, I know someone who's had someone pass away from the virus. I know, countless people, probably lost count of the people who actually have, been tested positive. I don't know about a ton of bad outcomes, right? And I know a wide range of very sick, hospital to asymptomatic, right? There's no consensus. There's no typical answer to this. So the change is, I want to go sit in a restaurant, like I want to go to a networking thing. I want to, I don't want anybody else to tell me how to make my decisions. That's the that's the challenge. That's the resistance. And I just think from an emotional well-being as a society, we have to constantly remind ourselves that all of us consume this information and handle it in different ways. And some of us are just more suited for change than others. And you just can't
And some
judge
of
and
us are more
gotta
suited for
try and pick
science than
everybody apart.
others, and some of us are more
Yeah.
suited for, what we know, what we believe, and what our religion tells us, and what our culture tells us, and what our uncle told us, and what our parents told us, and then how to either unlearn that, find facts, figure out, and disseminate information. And at the heart of that, we're all sitting here holding these things. I'm getting my ballot out. They gave me a hard time the other night at Election Palooza Mueller because I haven't opened it yet. And I said, well, I'm going to open it, fill it out. I'm going to take it up to the, we know where our ballot box is. But at least in this state, we don't have to stand in line, 12 hours waiting to vote, right? Like it's been sort of crazy to watch this whole process unfold across the country and how unequitable it or inequitable it is, to some degree. And I think that should disturb everybody.
Are you aware of the process on how they verify whether you mailed your ballot or whether you walked up and voted? Like you mail your ballot in, you walk up the day of election day and vote again. Is there are you
Oh, yeah.
aware?
We've done whole segments on that, bro. You can go see Nikki Charleston. You can see John Willis. You literally just go at the Baltimore Positive. You will hear the long explanation, the short explanation, and it will give you far more confidence than me explaining it to you in 30 seconds.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm
That's what
sure
we do around here.
yeah, I'm sure I attract a million listeners to our segments. So for those million listeners that are following the Bill and Nestor show, please go listen to those other ones, because to me, that's the part that I can't get a good answer. I ask lots of people that question.
Oh, okay.
Nobody
Good.
has a good answer.
Okay.
Nobody has a good answer for
What
that.
happens is it gets thrown out. It becomes a provisional issue. I can't explain it in
Yeah,
30 seconds, and I
no,
do
no,
have
I'll
to
go
wrap,
listen.
but I
Yes,
promise you
yes.
we've given it lots and lots of headspace and earspace.
Great. Well, I'll help support and promote that,
I'll,
because
I'll
that
attach
is
that along.
something that I think a lot of people are concerned about.
I'll bring it back out to the front. How about that?
Cool.
Disco?
No, yeah.
Appreciate you. Tell everybody what you do real quick, and then we'll set sail for Eagles. We didn't even talk any Eagles and Ravens. We'll be on bye week next week. We hate on the Steelers next time we get
I
together.
ain't worried about that. We're going to beat the Eagles by 25, 27 points. I ain't worried about that. This is just boring.
They're letting
right?
the fans in, which kind of pisses me off because now I can't go up there and be like a complete, purple guy. But I'm
Right.
I'm going to I'm going to be me. It's a
Right.
pandemic. Why not, right?
Yeah, let's see. Cole Roofing, 100-year-old commercial roofer, handling everything from leaks to hospitals and shopping centers and schools. We love to help solve problems. Gordon energy systems, solar, integrating on the roof, on the ground, on parking lots. Um, Again, love to help people solve problems, love to educate, explain how the economics work. Um, you know, old Baltimore company, lots of good people, just looking to help people. So I appreciate you, brother. Happy birthday, man. Enjoy
I
it.
like you. Yeah. I mean, well, you know what? You've set sail on this course here for me with Baltimore Positive and challenging me to not stick to sports about 4 years ago now. So the birth of the website, I keep crediting you, and it's all part of the ad that I give for you and let people know that, like, you can go fix their roof and teach them about solar, or I don't know, just root for the Ravens with them and, talk to them until the roof does leak, because eventually it'll leak, right?
Right on.
I
Good
know a
deal, brother.
guy. I got a guy, Bill
Yeah.
Cole at Cole Roofing. You can find him at Cole Roofing. I usually pull the website up and do that. He's working on a new backdrop with, was it Ben Franklin, or who was that behind you?
Yeah. Yeah. Ben Franklin.
Next week, we're that's still in beta mode, I
I
think.
can
Here,
quote it. I'm trying to get it so it's in my background because it's
what's
a
the
good
quote?
one.
Give it to us. Make it the parting
Um,
shot. Let's go.
Tell me and I will forget. Teach me and I will learn. Involve me and I understand. And
Mic
that is,
drop. That's
but
it.
that's actually wrong. So
That's all we need. It's close enough.
it'll be better when I have it behind me.
I'll be able to read it over your shoulder. Won't get it wrong. I'll get it wrong reading it. He is Bill Cole. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net. AM 1570, where we've just launched the all-new Baltimore Positive. Go check it out.